Welcome back to Midlife by Design. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, and I help midlife women learn how to use their human design so they can shed the shoulds and be who they came here to be. When's the last time you got 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep? Did I just cause you to snort your coffee? Yeah, okay. Today's episode is for you because I'm going to share with you how to fix it by design. Let's dive in. All right, let's talk about sleep, baby. Let's talk about Z's, baby. I was having a number of conversations on threads over the last couple of weeks about a variety of things in regards to midlife, and one that consistently gets so much attention is sleep in midlife. So if you are listening to this and you've ever had the experience of waking up around 3 o'clock in the morning and either not being able to get back to sleep or falling asleep, but having restless sleep for the rest of the night, and or having that 3 a.m. witching hour be a consistent part of your life experience during this phase, then this episode is for you. And I want you to know that you are not alone, although I would say that doesn't necessarily help you in those hours when you really just want to be getting the rest that you need. So today I'm going to share some tips, some tricks, and looking at this issue through the lens of human design. So first thing I'm going to do is share with you a few quick statistics about sleep in midlife. First one is that 56% of perimenopausal women sleep less than 7 hours per night. I'm actually kind of surprised that this number isn't higher, but I guess my interpretation or my take on it is it's probably like, okay, maybe you're getting 7 hours of sleep, but it might be 2 at a time, over the course of the night. Who knows? But still, over half of all perimenopausal women are getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night. And remember, the recommendation for kind of the average human is 8 hours of sleep. And I don't even think that's enough for a perimenopausal woman anyway. And plus also, the point of this podcast is that there is no one-size-fits-all sleep advice. You've really got to look at how your energy works and make adaptations based on that. Another statistic is that 40 to 47% of midlife women, specifically those in perimenopause, report insomnia symptoms. So holy shit, guys, that's almost half of the population of women who are in perimenopause are experiencing insomnia, not being able to sleep really much at all. That is fucking insane, because I'm going to get to how this actually affects us. But oh my God, when I read that, I was just like, oh, we really need so much more research and support around this issue in particular. And then the last statistic I have is that 50% of women who are 45 to 64 say that they experience disrupted sleep, which is more along the lines of waking up multiple times a night. And so obviously during perimenopause, we have to remember that our bodies are going through this huge shift in hormones, right? And where our estrogen drops off and our progesterone drops off, those hormones are little messengers that are moving all over our bodies from one place to the other, communicating, helping our bodies to stay in tip-top shape. And so when those hormones drop off the fucking cliff, we also do in some ways. And I think that sleep is one of the things that is often affected first. And most of the people who complain about this. I mean, on Threads, even having conversations with people just anecdotally, my experience has been the wake ups at 3 a.m. But people are talking about those midnight wake ups, and not necessarily like midnight, 12 o'clock, but more like by the time you get to sleep, which could be anywhere between, who knows, 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock. It's like you drift off into sleep, but then without fail, 3 o'clock, boom, it is literally like the witching hour. And on the positive side, for me, I was using this time when I was waking up regularly to just kind of look outside at the stars and enjoy the stillness for a few moments before I went back to bed. And I consider myself one of the lucky ones because even though before I got on HRT and before I started really paying attention to my habits, which I will get into, I was waking up very regularly in the middle of the night. And oftentimes I would wake up before a hot flash hit. So I would wake up and then I would go into the bathroom and then I'd just look outside. And if it was winter, I would crack open the window because by the time I had peed, I had gotten well into my hot flash. And so I would cool off a little bit and just sort of enjoy the beauty of the stillness and then make my way back to bed. And when I was talking about being lucky, I consider myself lucky because it never really took me very long to get back to sleep, even though I did always wake up. And I think that that is a lucky thing. I think it has something to do with how I was regularly using my energy, even though things were off. But I am going to give you some tips and tricks about that, but I know that that is not the case for a lot of people. So a lot of people will get back into bed and that's when their mind just starts racing and they're thinking about all of the things that they have to do tomorrow, or perhaps they're thinking about something that's on their minds, that they're worrying about. Because remember, when you are drifting off to sleep and first waking up, you're in that beautiful subconscious kind of state, that theta state where you can reprogram your brain. And when you get up though, and you start to kind of shuffle around, especially if you turn on lights or that sort of thing, then that is bringing you full into your conscious mode. And that's where your brain can start to take off. And it's also the problem. I think that according to Threads, there are a lot of women who will also then get on their phones because they're just laying there for a while and they can't get back to sleep. And so they choose to get on their phones and start scrolling or even start working. And I would recommend against that because you're putting that blue light now into your eyes and you're waking up your brain even more. And plus also to each her own, because I realize that sometimes when you're spending hours awake at night, that it can be really hard to just lay there and try to rest. So I'm going to give you some ideas about how to address that. But before I do that, I want to talk about what this exhaustion what the price is for us when we are getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night and or when we are getting broken sleep every night. So exhaustion can be associated with a greater risk of heart disease, which is something that midlife women are already at higher risk for. So this is something to really pay attention to. If you have any heart disease in your family, it's something to tune in and understand how much more important it is for you to guard your sleep and to really try to build good sleep habits and good sleep hygiene. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the brain fog. And, if you are getting good sleep and you think that you have brain fog after 8 hours of sleep, try functioning on 4 hours of sleep, right? Or even broken up sleep. Say you get 6 hours, but it's, in a few different spurts. It's like when you aren't sleeping for long enough and allowing your brain to drop into that deep REM sleep, then you're not repairing, you're not restoring the cells in your body. So this is why it is so important. Your mood can obviously go in the tank. I mean, who isn't cranky when they're tired, especially after years and years of it? Obesity and diabetes has been tied to less sleep. And I guess one of the things that I have noticed on threads, and even again in conversations with friends, is that we can tend to joke about our lack of sleep. Like, oh, I got 4 hours last night. Like, how many did you get? Like, it's some sort of contest to how exhausted we can all be. We just sort of try to turn it into a joke because we feel like, what else can we do? But here's the thing. It's like joking about how little sleep we get is not funny. And I think we get into this capitalistic conditioning where we just believe like we have to grind through it. Oh, well, I'm not sleeping that well. This is just the phase. Everybody's like this, and just accepting it like that and not making any changes. And years go by when you're not sleeping well. And the cumulative effect of that on your body and on your well-being is just horrible. So it's really nothing to joke about. It's something that you want to take seriously, and you want to treat like it's important. So let's look at it now through the lens of human design. And for today's episode, I'm going to focus on the energy types. So we've got manifestors, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And one of the things that Ra teaches, the founder of human design, is that he actually suggests that people should sleep alone. Because even when we are asleep, we're actually conditioning each other with the centers that we have defined. We're like exchanging energy, right? Because we're still in each other's auras. Like beds are not 10 feet wide where you can be, or 12 feet wide. Even they would have to be even bigger than that. Then, in order to be able to break apart from somebody else's aura. If you're within 6 feet of them, you're going to be conditioning each other. And humans, again, are meant to do this. We came to our world to have that experience. And plus also, going back to the idea that rest is about restoration. It's about restoring our cells. And it's hard to do that and to just relax them with that conditioning that's happening, with that energy. So, for example, let's think about sacrals and non-sacrals. So if you don't know your human design type, remember that you can go to my website, www.lorilisai.com, and go to Get Your Chart. Type in your birth information, and it will tell you what your energy type is. So if you are a non-sacral, that means you're a manifestor, a projector, or a reflector. And if you're a sacral, it means you're a generator or a manifesting generator. So those two groups, non-sacrals and sacrals, are really the ones who it's best if they are not sleeping together, at least on the regular. So, for example, if you are a projector and you are married to a generator, then one thing that I would suggest for you would be to experiment with sleeping alone, even if it's just one night a week. See what happens. See how you both are resting, because your generator partner is also like transmitting that energy instead of resting that battery. So for them, they aren't going to be getting that same deep sleep as they would if they were sleeping separately from you, because you're taking on their energy. So that's just it's a suggestion, something that you can play around with and see if it feels good to you. Another thing I would say about sacrals versus non-sacrals, and then we'll get into the specific types, is two things. One, what is rejuvenating for you during the day as a generator or a manifesting generator is going to have a big impact on how you sleep. Versus if you're a non-sacral, for you, it's more about your strategy. It's more about, if you're a manifestor working in cycles, it's more, if you're a projector, have you been recognized and feeling like the work that you're doing is not draining you? And I guess I would say that's a good way to put it for really all of the types. It's like whatever you're engaging in during the day, are you feeling drained by it? Because, during the day when we are awake, ideally we are feeling like we're filling up our cup with the good things instead of depleting it. And the other thing I would say for all types is that everybody needs naps at our age. And this is going back to the idea of perimenopause and menopause and this huge shift that we are in with our body chemistry and how our bodies work, how our bodies function, and we need to give them more rest. So I know myself as a generator, I take naps now like relatively regularly, I don't know, a couple times a week at least. And I used to feel shame about that. Like, oh my gosh, I have so much energy. I should, right? Just keep going. And that's not the way it is. Actually, what I have discovered is that I can get to a point and feel like, no, actually, I feel like I've spent my battery for right now. I have to sit down and read a book for a little while and maybe take a little nap. So let's talk about the specific types. Manifestors. Remember that you are cyclical beings. So it's so funny. I saw somebody post the other day on Threads, and she was talking about a project that she was working on and how jazzed she was. And basically how all she did was she worked on it for 5 days straight and she got like 3 hours of sleep a night. And then I just commented and I was like, do you happen to be a manifestor? And she said, actually, I am. This is how you work. As manifestors, you get your creative urge and then you go like freaking batshit crazy on that. And you just go and do it until you've basically exhausted that urge. And then you have to rest at the same, if not more, to replenish your energy. And it's cyclical. So for you, getting 3 hours of sleep a night, I would say is okay as long as it's not a long-term thing. So if you're getting 3 hours of sleep a night for 5 days in a row, for example, then I would say for the next 10 days, you should be getting 10 to 11 hours of sleep. Whatever feels good for your body, but you are looking to make that rest cycle truly deeply rest. And I love how Katie Irvine talks about her rest cycle as a manifestor, which is, she said it's not about getting horizontal and then getting on her computer and doing work. She has had to find very specific things that she can do that literally turn off her brain, like no thinking. It's truly rest. So I would suggest reading a fiction book. Katie watches rom-coms, even rom-coms that she has seen already because she knows the plot. She doesn't have to wonder. It doesn't like get her nervous system worked up. So think about what that looks like for you and then experiment with it. As we know, human design is an experiment. And the other thing, this is another recommendation from Katie actually, which is manifestors, you have defined throats. So if you find that you are going to sleep at night and you have some leftover energy that feels like it still needs to be expended, then chat it up with your partner or give somebody a call and have a chat. It's a great way to kind of let out that, that lasting energy that's still there. So for projectors, I pulled this idea from Jenna Zoe, which she says, get what you think you need in terms of sleep and then sleep some more. And here's the thing about that. Projectors vary widely in design. Some projectors can literally have just two centers defined. Like if you're a mental projector and you have your throat and your ajna connected, or your mind, or you have your mind and your head connected, and that's it, then that's a very different kind of projector than the kind that has a motor defined, like your heart or your emotional solar plexus or your root. Those projectors are going to have more energy. And the more of those three centers that you have defined meaning they're colored in on your chart, the more that you have of those, the more energy you're going to have, because they're motor centers. They're meant to be little motors for us. They're not batteries, but they are motors. They do make things move. So I want you to keep that in mind and maybe look at your chart and see, where is my definition? Just because I'm a projector and a non-sacral doesn't mean that I don't have quite a bit of energy. And, if it's emotional energy and you're an emotionally defined projector, I would tell you, make sure you are, emoting. If you are feeling something, feel the feels about whatever has come up through your day. Don't tamp down your emotions. That is going to definitely get your mind racing at night. And actually that goes for any emotional, whether you're a projector or not. But for projectors, if you've got that emotional, you can also move, emotions are just energy in motion. So when you are moving, you are also processing those energies. So those are a couple of tips for projectors. If you are a generator or a manifesting generator, I'm going to link you two types together for this particular conversation about sleep, because for both types, it's super important for you to spend as much energy as you can during the day doing what makes you feel alive, what makes you excited, what gets your sacral turned on, because that is going to expend your battery power. And what can happen for you, remember, generators and manifesting generators are 70% of the population. So what can happen for you is, if you're not expending this battery power, then you are going to get into the tailspin and the overthinking, and your mind is going to start racing, and you'll be like, shit, I didn't do this, or I got to do this, and blah, blah, blah. So I would highly recommend that you are doing what really makes you excited during the day. And then another thing I would say is, if you don't really feel tired when you're getting into bed, then especially if you're a manifesting generator, spending some time doing some movement before bedtime. So sex is great. Like, sex will leave you satisfied, hopefully, if it's going well for you. And it will also expend some of that energy that you have, so then you can fall asleep. But if your sex drive is in the tank, then taking a walk or doing some yoga or something, some kind of movement to just make sure that that battery power is expended. And then for generators, remember that generators are a little bit different than manifesting generators in terms of their momentum that gets built. And it may take them a little more time in the morning. Like I've talked about my own experience getting going in the morning. It's like a slow roll versus, my manifesting generator partner is like up and fucking trying to have deep conversations with me, and I'm like half awake. So as generators, it's like that train, going. So once it slowly gets chugging and chugging and chugging, and then faster and faster, and then it's like hard to stop. So this is another reason why generator types can get into that having a hard time falling asleep, because they haven't expended that battery. It's like their train is not ready to stop, even though the clock technically says it's bedtime. So I love to recommend early exercise if it feels in alignment for you and it works for you for a generator, because it sets you up where you're already expending some of that energy first thing in the morning. You're getting some endorphins, you're setting yourself up for success for the day. It can work really well as a generator. And then by the end of the day, you've gone through your work day or whatever you've been doing all day, and you're feeling tired. Another thing that can work for generators and manifesting generators is giving themselves enough time to slow down and kind of ease into the bedtime. So I always go upstairs to go to bed at least an hour before I actually go to sleep. And I've got my bedtime routine, and I usually read. So doing something like that gives you that time to just slowly slow down can be super helpful for setting yourself up for success. And then the last type, reflectors, remember that you are highly, highly sensitive to your environment and to the people around you. So in terms of using your environment for your bedtime routine, I would say think about the environmental cues that you can set up for yourself. If you've got your lights on and it's bedtime, that's not cueing your body. Even if you're turning off the overhead lights and you just have your bedside table light, a soft light next to you, that can be helpful. I would also say no screens would be super important for everybody, but especially for reflectors, because you are so sensitive to everything. And then another point that I would make for reflectors is that you may notice a difference in your sleep quality throughout the course of the month in conjunction to where the moon is. So for example, if there's a full moon, it may be a little harder for you to sleep because you're such a lunar being. So knowing that and understanding that can be so supportive for you, because then you realize, okay, I may need some naps during that time of the month. And maybe I need a little bit less during the time of new moon. And I don't want to suggest that it's always going to be connected to full and new moon. I want you to tune into your specific cycle, because wherever the moon was when you were born is actually it's a marker for you to know, like, oh, okay, this was the start of my life. So it may feel kind of like new moon energy to you wherever the moon happened to be. So if you were born on a full moon, that might actually feel a little more like your resting time, and the new moon might feel like, woo! So anyway, paying attention to the moon. And then the last thing is, which I mentioned earlier, the people who are around you. Highly recommend that if you are sleeping or you have a partner and you're sleeping together, that you practice at least one day a week sleeping apart and see how that changes things, see if that's supportive for you. I would also say that the people who you spend time with during the day are going to impact the quality of your sleep, because you have been taking on their energy and amplifying it for the entire day. Okay, so when you understand your human design energy type, I think that you can make some practical choices around your bedtime routines and around how you are setting yourself up for sleep success, even during the waking hours. And learning this is so important because it's so different, right? A reflector is not getting the same sleep advice as a generator. And understanding that we are not all the same, even though the sleep advice in perimenopause tends to be the same, is important. So I would say take what resonates with you from both and experiment with it. I always want to encourage you to experiment because human design is no more a rule book than astrology, than any of the other systems from which it draws. It is simply an invitation to experiment. So if you are feeling like your sleep is a freaking wreck, then I invite you to book a one-to-one, the Midlife mapping call with me, and let's just figure it out. We can come up with a specific routine or a rhythm, and we can look at other components of your human design and see how those all fit together to address this issue. Because as I said earlier, just anecdotally from talking to other women in midlife and following different social media posts and whatnot about sleep, it is a huge issue. And so I want to help you. And so I invite you to book a free call if you are interested in talking about it and in making a change in your life, because it is possible. You do not have to suffer. So that is it for me for this week, and I will see you next time, beauty. So glad you tuned in to today's episode of Midlife by Design. I am wishing you 8 uninterrupted hours of blissful sleep tonight, except if you're a manifestor in your creative cycle. And listen, if you want to create a plan together that is sleep by your human design, then you know what to do. Let's figure it out together. The link is in the show notes. And remember that I am always wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.